episode of Conscious Straight Talk with Katie and Lindsay.
Hi, my name is Katie Hutchinson, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and I'm also a certified mediator.
And I'm Lindsay Kearns. I'm the mama behind MalibuMamaLoves.com, and I'm also a certified conscious trauma informed life coach. You guys, I was shocked to find out that only 20 states have banned conversion therapy, meaning that 30 states are still using this horrible form of practice, very damaging form of practice for minors specifically. Conversion therapy is the pseudoscientific practice of attempting to change an individual's sexuality or sexual orientation, gender identity, gender expression to align with heterosexual norms. Usually, as I said, a minor being brought in by the parents or caregivers. This is horrible.
I was horrified while watching this documentary a couple weeks ago on conversion therapy. Of course, I learned about this a little bit in graduate school, but it was like 5 seconds. I never learned about the amount of people who've committed suicide, etc. It makes sense though,
Yeah.
because of conversion therapy. It's just astounding to me.
This is an extremely controversial practice that has been disavowed by a number of organizations. I was actually in shock at how many organizations have said no to this, but yet we still have 30 states practicing this.
Yep.
The American Psychological Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the National Association of School Social Workers, and the American Counseling Association, all of them have said no to this. Yet 30 states are still doing it.
Not only has conversion therapy been proven to be non-scientific and actually damaging to the client, but many unlicensed individuals think that they have the knowledge to change people. And that part's really scary to me. Religious leaders, people that were gay, or self-taught advocates often lead conversion therapy sessions or groups.
Conversion therapists use a range of approaches that can include conventional talk therapy, prayer, education, hypnosis, or aversion therapy. If you haven't heard of aversion therapy, get ready for this
about to. There's also lobotomies, and I'll get to that at the end. Yes. Okay. So, and aversion therapy is the most controversial approach because of its potential to turn dangerous, like seriously dangerous.
Well, isn't a lobotomy part of the aversion therapy?
Yes.
Yes.
And
that's what you're explaining now.
Well, I'm going to explain the other things
go.
in them. As recently as the 1970s, so that was only 50 years ago, many conversion therapy programs used electroshock therapy or vomit-inducing chemical compounds like Ipecac. I'm thinking Ipecac, which they give to alcoholics. When a person in treatment demonstrated an attraction to a member of the same sex. So I, at Berkeley, took a psychology class from this man, and he told all of us that his father had performed the most lobotomies and that he was still getting death threats as a result of this. He said his father turned his van into a lobotomobile, is what he called it. And they basically use an ice pick and just go in the front of your head. So, he's still getting death threats, and that was a little terrifying.
It brings me back to those early 1900 movies, where they would do a lobotomy. Like that's just what you envision. Have you guys seen that stuff?
Or One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Yep.
Nowadays, a milder, more aversive technique might include encouraging a person to snap a rubber band on his or her wrist, right? There's a lot of psychological ways. And I know we've all heard of that with the stopping the smoke, doing that or trying to break a bad habit.
Yeah.
A lot of people use the rubber band thing, but they're actually using this to reprogram you.
In an okay way, should I say. I actually use the rubber band snapping technique when people are experiencing OCD, terrible anxiety, panic attacks, etc., to remind them that this too will pass and that these fears are not real.
But others argue that early trauma, including sexual abuse, can change your sexual orientation. And by addressing this trauma, they believe a person's sexual orientation can be changed or modified.
Okay, so I don't believe in sexual orientation being changed or modified, but I have seen people that have been raped or incest has occurred, or they've been horribly mistreated by the opposite sex, and they have decided to like the same sex, to be with somebody of the same sex because they feel safer. But that's a different situation than somebody that's born liking the same sex.
a little bit of a different situation. However, with that level of trauma, it does completely change our brains.
Mhm.
And so I don't think that can be changed back sexually. I think once
Seen it
they're
go
there,
back and forth. I
you
don't
know,
know.
though
Mhm.
any adult can freely pursue conversion therapy, children may only do so at the behest of their parents. Conversion therapy for minors is particularly controversial because a lot of the times the children will run away from treatment. They will try to their shame and their guilt just becomes so solidified that more damage is occurring.
Depressed and
It's
confused.
gonna and nine a lot of times, I don't want to say 9 times out of 10, but a lot of times when you these people that go through it become suicidal.
For example, there was a girl named Leela Alcorn, a 17-year-old transgender girl, and she committed suicide in 2014 after undergoing conversion therapy. This
And
event brought national attention to conversion therapy. Thank goodness. But this is
but it's only
only
one.
exactly, and this was
This
only
happens
8
a
years
lot.
ago. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that some adults don't freely seek out conversion therapy, but
Usually because of society's pressures.
yes. But usually teenagers are sent to conversion therapy to help make their kids straight by their parents. The parents are fearful or embarrassed instead of being accepting and proud of their child.
Mhm.
This leads children to run away, as we said, cut themselves, starve themselves, and sometimes to actually commit suicide. This
Mhm.
makes me so sad. It really does. Why would anybody choose to be discriminated against? This is
Mhm.
not a choice. This is science.
But parents have their fears. And no matter how irrational they may be, they do have control over their children.
Mhm.
And life as a non heterosexual person in a society that provides privilege to heterosexual people can be fraught with challenges. One study found that LGBTQA youth are more than twice as likely to attempt suicide as their peers. So imagine how much pressure they're under if they're not getting any support at home and their home is just trying to change them.
Awful. Yep. And a small study of 55 transgender teens found that 25% had attempted suicide. That is not a
Mhm.
surprise to me, and I bet it's more.
Mhm.
Discrimination, religious stigma, family rejection, and a host of other factors contribute to this. This can influence people who are LGBTQA to attempt to alter their sexual orientation. And I just want to add one thing here. One of my best friends is a gay guy, and he's wonderful. And he told me that when he was about 4 years old, he knew that he was different. He wanted to go in, and this is cliche, but this is what he told me. This is true. He wanted to go in and be with his mom and the other women cooking, etc., while his brother was out playing baseball and digging up worms, etc. So he said by 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, by 4 years old, he knew that he was different. He didn't know he was gay,
Yeah.
but he knew he was different.
Yeah. It's just so sad. And parents, no, uh, conversion therapy may also be directed to those who are transgender.
Hmm.
In recognition of the fact that being transgender is not a mental health condition, the DSM removed gender identity disorder as a diagnosis, replacing it in the fifth edition with gender dysphoria, which is described as the distressed experience when a person's actual gender does not align with the one assigned at birth.
Yes, thank goodness that the DSM has changed this term because gender identity disorder just sounds really demeaning to me. Does it sound demeaning to you?
Yeah, and most studies suggest that sexual orientation cannot be changed. Pretty much all of them do.
Yep.
And I just wanted to say about the suicides before, I do think they're really underreported because in
Hmm.
that situation, the family is so embarrassed about it,
Hmm.
they'll do anything to cover it up.
Yeah. I mean,
So it's so low. Yeah, that's
I've
okay.
had clients and the children have come in, let's just say it's a boy and it's a teenager. I'm just making something up.
Yeah.
And this client has walked in, this boy, and I can tell that this boy is gay. There's no questioning it. And the child has wanted to maybe do binding or paint their nails or dress differently or whatever. And the parents were like, this is my child. And I
Mhm.
know my child is not gay. And it's like, no, but your
Yeah.
child is telling you that they're gay. Listen to your child.
Yeah. Even when sexual orientation is believed to have changed, it comes at a huge
Mhm.
hefty price.
Yep. Yes, it does. So, a person who pursues conversion therapy is typically taught to suppress his or her desires, reject his or her identity, and replace his or her sexual expression with the type of sexuality that someone else says is appropriate, i.e., heterosexual.
You guys, nearly 200,000 people in the US have been exposed to conversion therapy just this year.
Mhm.
Well, last year, 2021.
Yes.
That's crazy to me. How is this happening? It breaks my heart to know that now, as awakened as we've all been becoming, people are still out there being subjected to extreme measures to try to force them to be something they simply are not.
Now, out here in California, we're more accepting, don't
Well,
you
this is
think?
one of the states that has it banned.
Yes, and we're in suburbia, and it's from what I see, my kids going to school. It's very accepted. It's
Hmm.
very frowned upon to look down on transgender and gay people. It's actually cool to be transgender and gay.
But not in Oklahoma.
Nope. In early 2015, Oklahoma experienced intense backlash in response to its efforts to protect conversion therapy. Can you believe that?
Mm-mm.
Republican Rep. Sally Kern introduced the bill to protect parents' ability to pursue such treatment for their children. The bill was later amended to prohibit physical pain, such as electroshock,
Oh my God.
or it's terrible. I'm not, I mean, we're laughing, but it's horrible.
I just
Or
can't believe that in, this century we're still talking about even doing those things.
Well,
It's archaic.
electroconvulsive therapy is good for depression. It can work for hard to treat depression, but this is not the same
Not this
case.
extreme.
Touch therapy, which we've been arguing back and forth, what does that really mean? Pornography exposure or vomit induction therapy, which I hate to vomit. I don't know about you.
Mhm.
And lobotomies. These are controversial tactics which not all therapists who practice conversion therapy use. Kern argues that the freedom to pursue conversion therapy for minors is a parent's rights
Mm-mm.
issue, not the child's
Mm-mm.
rights.
No, 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 no. I have 4 children and I could never, ever subject them to this. In fact, I'd be flippin' furious if someone ever put my kid through this. So, how can the next generation evolve and grow if we are constantly holding them back, trying to force them to conform to something they don't know and doesn't feel right to them? How is that even happening in 2022?
I don't know. I have 3 children and I know they would never go to conversion therapy. I mean, it's normal to experiment in one's teen years, when they're children, early 20s, etc. This is just normal sexual exploration. But this is different. This is about the child or adult who is not experimenting and they're dealing with learning to accept themselves. And then they're
Hmm.
tossed into conversion therapy. This is nature. This isn't nurture. This is
Yeah,
nature.
yeah. By choosing to provide reparative therapy, therapists are actually neglecting their ethical obligation
Mhm.
to do good because they are not providing effective therapy. They're actively doing harm to these people. Why does no one get that? Sometimes ethical therapy isn't just meeting a client where they're at. We have to challenge viewpoints and deconstruct ideologies that are actively harmful to our patients. These may come from the client's family, or even the community on a whole.
Mhm. When any trusted person, i.e., a therapist, etc., refuses to accept a client's gender identity or sexual
Oh,
orientation, that is harmful
so
to the
bad.
client and it's damaging to the client therapist relationship. And that
Hmm.
relationship is so important. As therapists, we are taught ethically to never do harm to our clients. Never. For clients whose own families and church communities are no longer safe spaces for clients to exist as they are, therapists should not reinforce any unnecessary sense of shame. Same-sex
Hmm.
attraction is not pathology, people. This too has been established by our profession since 1973, which is great. Therapy based around changing something about a client that is not problematic to them is not okay, and it neglects our ethical obligations. I've had clients that came out as bisexual or gay or whatever to their family and to their church, and the church denounced them and sent letters to all of their members declaring that this person was bisexual or gay and to ignore them and
To
denounce them.
humiliate them.
Yep.
It's a humiliation tactic to try to reform them,
Mhm.
reprogram them. See,
Mhm.
everyone's going to be laughing at you if
Mhm.
you decide to do this
It's
because
disgusting.
it's a decision, right? Like, come
Yeah,
on,
it's disgusting.
I think that God loves all of us. or in the powers that be, right?
Mhm.
We're all beautiful creatures, and there is a purpose for each and every one of us on this earth. In being realistic, though, there are people, narcissistic and toxic people alike, who feel that they are right. They know everything, and everyone should look and act exactly as they do. They're the dangerous ones. And give one of those people a psychology degree.
And watch out, but most of them do not have a psychology degree. Okay, and so why would God or the powers that be, whoever's up above, if you believe in that, make these different people? If he thought that they were bad or wrong or even gross, it makes me so sad. Even to say the word gross is terrible. I am a spiritual person personally, not necessarily religious, but my thought is just let people be as they are as long as they're not hurting other people. Don't you agree?
And that doesn't mean hurting their parents' feelings,
Mhm.
right? For being true to yourself. That means as long as you're not damaging someone else physically, mentally, or emotionally. As people are starting to open their minds and be less afraid, I do think we'll see more banning of this practice. It just takes time and conversations. We all need to know about it and talk about it.
Well, one thing that's talked about all the time is that gay people are ruining the classic American family. And that
No.
has nothing, we still have classic American families.
America is a melting pot. This country was
Exactly.
founded on bringing all of us together and giving us a free space to cohabitate together. We
Yep.
need to respect each other.
Mhm.
We need to understand each other.
Yeah, so we need to keep the conversation going on conversion therapy. Do you know
Absolutely.
anybody who's ever had conversion therapy?
I don't think that I do.
I don't think I have either. Maybe it's because we live in California. Have you been kicked out of a church or a family or group of friends because of your sexuality?
I hope not, because that is just, it's really sad and painful, and I can understand that. So, you guys, you're not alone. This is happening to people out there if this has happened to you. I actually know someone that got kicked out of a church because she decided to get divorced. It wasn't about her sexual orientation, but the church did the same thing. They
Mhm.
shunned her. They sent a letter out to everyone. She's divorcing us, even though she was just divorcing her husband. So I've heard about this in different, it takes different forms. It's not just the LGBTQA community, but for today, for the conversion therapy, you guys, please share your stories. Give this video a
Please.
like. Sharing is caring. The more we can
Mhm.
talk about this, share this video so we can get the word out.
We want to hear
We
about your
need to talk
stories.
about it. Yeah.
Yep.
So, all right, we'll leave you there. I hope you have a great week, and we will see you right back here on Wednesday.